Imagine waking up in total darkness and hearing something move just outside the firelight. There is no switch to flip, no lock to turn, no light on the ceiling, just blackness, cold air, and the feeling that the dark is not empty. For ancient humans, night was not a soft ending to the day. It was a place they had to survive. That is the part people usually miss. We think of night as rest, quiet, and sleep. But for most of human history, darkness was danger. It was the time when predators could come closer, when temperature dropped, when food could be harder to find, and when a small mistake could become a serious problem. So, what did ancient humans really do at night? They did a lot more than sleep. They protected fire like it was treasure, because in many cases, it was. They sat beside it for warmth, for safety, and for light. They repaired broken tools, mended clothing, twisted rope, told stories, taught children, watched the dark, and tried to get through the night without losing anything important. And the most important thing of all was fire. Today, if a fire goes out, you shrug and relight it. But for a huge stretch of human history, that was not so simple. Reliable fire starting is a relatively recent skill in the long story of human life. For much of prehistory, people probably depended on keeping existing fire alive rather than making a new one whenever they wanted. That meant embers mattered, ash mattered, tinder mattered. If the flame died, it could become a genuine emergency. Some groups carried fire from one place to another by protecting glowing embers in bundles of tinder, green leaves, fungus, or other organic material that could keep smoldering. That was not a convenience trick. It was survival engineering. Think about how careful that would have to be. You would need to keep the ember warm enough to stay alive, but not so exposed that wind or rain destroyed it. You would need to protect it from moisture, from accident, from one wrong movement. And if the ember survived, it could save the group from a cold night, a raw meal, or a dangerous morning. Fire was more than heat. It was the center of the night. It pushed back darkness. It gave people a place to gather. It made the shelter feel less like a hiding place and more like a home. It kept bodies warm when the temperature dropped. It helped dry clothes, hides, tools, and bedding. It cooked food. It scared away animals that did not want to get too close. And maybe most importantly, it gave people a reason to stay together. That matters because ancient humans were not sleeping in a sealed modern house. They were often in open shelters, caves, rock overhangs, or temporary camps where the boundaries between inside and outside were thin. Night noises were real noises. Shadows looked alive. The dark was not just a visual condition, it was a psychological condition. And because of that, someone had to stay alert. Not everyone could sleep at once. Someone had to watch the fire. Someone had to listen. Someone had to notice movement near the shelter. Even when nothing happened, the possibility of something happening shaped the whole night. That alone changes the way we think about ancient life. Night was not a dead zone between 2 days. It was an active part of survival. Once the fire was stable, people didn't just sit and do nothing. They worked. This is one of the biggest clues archaeologists have found about ancient nighttime life. Caves and rock shelters are full of evidence that people used those spaces as workshops, not just shelters. Stone tools appear in different stages of production. Tiny chips of flaked rock collect in specific areas where someone would have been sitting and working. That is not random clutter. That is the debris of long hours of careful making. And night was perfect for that kind of work. When you cannot hunt, travel far, or gather food easily, you turn to the things that can be done by firelight. You sharpen a tool. You retouch a blade. You repair a broken point. You prepare materials for tomorrow. You make sure the next day starts with more than you had the night before. That is how survival becomes strategy. Ancient humans also used those hours to make clothing, cordage, and shelter materials. Bone needles appear in the archaeological record as delicate tools for sewing. Thread and rope changed everything. Because once people could bind, tie, lash, and stitch, They could make better clothing, stronger shelters, better traps, and more flexible tools. But rope does not appear out of nowhere. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes repetition. It is exactly the kind of thing you do when the weather is bad and the dark keeps you close to camp. The same logic applies to bedding. At some prehistoric sites, archaeologists have found carefully arranged layers of grasses, leaves, and plant materials used as sleeping mats. Some of those layers were chosen for comfort, some for insulation. Some may have been chosen because they helped repel insects. That means ancient people were not just trying to survive the night, they were trying to improve it. That is an important difference. There is survival, and then there is adaptation. There is making it through the night, and then there is making the night work for you. Ancient humans were doing both, and this is where the story gets even more interesting. Because at night, people did more than maintain the body, they maintained the mind. Around the fire, the tone changed. The day was often practical. During daylight, people were moving, hunting, gathering, tracking, carrying, and solving immediate problems. But around the fire, once the world narrowed and the group was forced to stay in one place, something different happened. They talked, they told stories, they repeated warnings, they shared memories, they explained the world, they passed down knowledge about water, plants, animals, weather, and danger. They sang, they joked, they argued, they connected. This is one of the most important things fire did for human beings. It did not just keep us alive physically. It changed the way we communicated. At night, the group had time to speak in full sentences, time to reflect, time to listen, time to teach the younger people how to recognize danger, where to find food, how to behave, what to remember, and what to fear. In other words, the fire became a classroom. That matters because human culture does not survive on instinct alone. It survives on transfer. One generation learns something, remembers it, and hands it to the next. Nighttime created the space for that transfer to happen again and again. Storytelling was not entertainment first. It was memory technology. A story about a bad hunt could teach caution. A story about rain could explain seasonal change. A story about a dangerous place could keep a child alive years later. A story about an ancestor could hold a group together. The night gave those stories a place to live. And maybe that is why ancient humans also made art in the dark. Some of the most famous prehistoric cave paintings are not in bright, easy places near the entrance. They are deep inside caves, where the dark is thick and the walls are far from the daylight. Ancient humans were also sleeping differently than we usually imagine. Modern people often think of sleep as one long, uninterrupted block. But historical and anthropological research suggests that segmented sleep may have been common in pre-industrial settings. People may have slept in phases, with a quiet waking period in the middle of the night. During that pause, they might have tended the fire, talked softly, prayed, thought, or simply waited. That means the night was not always one clean shutdown. It may have been a rhythm: sleep, wake, rest, sleep again. And that makes sense. If you live in a world with no streetlights, no electric glow, and no modern alarm system, your body and your behavior will adapt to the darkness. Night was where a lot of human life actually happened. And the strangest part is that some of that is still inside us. Even now, people gather around screens the way ancient people gathered around flames. We still want warmth, light, company, and narrative when the day ends.